All right, we'll call this episode 13, lucky number 13 of the Athletic Philosopher Podcast. I am Jordan Goldstein, PhD, doctor, ultra runner, ex-professor. Just call me that sport philosophy guy here as your host, and very excited about today's topic. We are moving a little bit out of the purely philosophical realm today, and I'm going to talk to you about my decision making in putting races on next year's calendar. So this episode is all about how I choose races, why I choose them, and effectively the orienting principles that guide me to decide which races are appropriate and which races can't be done that year. And I say orienting in a particular way because if you've listened to a lot of these episodes, you'll know that I view sport as this overarching orientation. It's not just an activity that we do, but it is a mode of being that allows us to live out our full potential, but also to live authentically, with passion, with creativity, and in a way that allows the rest of our lives to fit in seamlessly. So if you're watching this, I oftentimes make this hand signal when I'm talking to my clients, my athletes, or hosting one of the various group calls that we have on the team. The triangle starts at the top, right? Sport is what we place at the top in terms of ordering and orienting our lives. And when we do it properly, I fit out and I make a nice bigger triangle. It properly orders everything underneath it. So it's this overarching orienting activity when aimed properly. And I've talked a lot about how we can aim, what we should be aiming for. And ultimately, I want to use today's episode to give you a real life example of how this all comes together. All right. So in 2025, in terms of my personal races, the ones that I will be competing in, I've already got 4 on the calendar. One is a yet to be signed up for race, but it's going to be put on there for sure. Okay. So what are these races? Let's just hit them off first, and then I'm going to talk to you about how I came to those decisions. So the first race in 2025 is February 1st, Elephant Mountain 50-mile trail run in Cave Creek, Arizona. The second race, pardon me, Kettle Moraine 100-mile trail race up in southern Wisconsin, June 14th. Third race is going to be one of the trail races that's going to be happening at our inaugural Tribal Trail Fest held out in Boulder, Colorado at the end of July and the beginning of August. And we're not sure exactly which race or how many races or what distance or formats we're going to be putting on. But if there's a half marathon trail race, that's the one I want to go in. I really want to get a half marathon trail run this year. And if I can make that happen at an event that our team is putting on and that I'll be attending as a coach, even better. And then finally, we got Prairie on Fire Backyard Ultra, September 6th, 2025. There's also 2 other races that I will be traveling to. The first is the 70.3 in Chattanooga, May 18th, and the Team Ironman, which is either going to be in Florida or is going to be in California. Could also be in a different location. We're not sure yet, but that's going to be happening likely in late October or early November 2025. So that's what's on the table for me. I got 4 races that I'm going to be competing in. I've got 2 races that I'm going to be traveling to for support, service, and coaching. Now, how did I determine that these 4 races that I'll be participating in and 2 that I'll be traveling to are the races for me? Well, I've got 3 main reasons. We can call them these orienting principles that have selected these races, because there's a myriad of 50 milers, 100 milers, backyard ultras, half marathon trail races out there. There's all these exotic locations, these dynamic trails, these historic events, right? How do you simply choose? You want to travel to a few of these events, you want some local events, right? You want to race with other people. For somebody like me, I want to race in a way that furthers my career, my professional authority, both as a coach, but also as an athlete. So how do you determine? How do you decide? When I mention sport as this overarching orienting activity, right? It's done in accordance and in correlation and in concert with the deep internal values and principles that we hold. When I talk about aiming yourself properly, I'm utilizing a lot of ancient wisdom, and in particular that of Aristotle, who tells us that any activity, doesn't matter what it is, can become a moral activity if the individual, one, aims at it with internal motivation and understands it as a realization of the highest good that's attainable to that particular individual. So any activity is moral if I'm passionate about it, if going after it and achieving excellence is something that brings about the best of my own individual potential, and that I aim there solely with internal passion and desire. I'm not motivated by like money or status or reputation or any of those external draws, right? So for me, these are apparent when it comes to trail running and ultra running. I ran in the forest by myself without ever going into a competition for 9 years. It's only in the last year and a bit that I've emerged into the world of formal competition, right? So it's not the finish lines or the badges or the medals or the belt buckles that are motivating me. It's more of a continuation of that internal desire to be out on the trails, to push performance as a way to know more about myself, but also express myself athletically and physically in something that I'm deeply passionate about. So when thinking about why am I even entering trail races, it's a continuation of this deep love of trail running, that I've developed over years and years of consistently going out into the forest, pushing pace, pushing distance, pushing intensity, and really challenging myself out there. But now that I have all of these different push and pull factors in terms of wanting to sign up for races, plus my own obligations, right, to my family, to my wife, to my kids, how am I going to figure out which races to sign up for and which ones maybe can be on the calendar next year or the year after? So there are 3 reasons or 3 variables that orient my decisions on how I select races. The first is primarily related to becoming a coach, realizing that authority, and extending my impact. You know, I was a university professor, I was an academic, I had my career progression and path kind of laid out, and then all that was, in a sense, taken away from me, and I chose to also give it up when I left the academy for a whole bunch of reasons. Maybe I'll dive into that in a future pod episode. But this year of 2024 for me has been, I would say, a realization that I finally have a career again. Like I finally have a professional progression that's matched with my talent, my skills, my internal desire, my abilities to impact and help people utilize sports for the best possible purpose in their own life, in terms of life coaching, but also in terms of being a fitness and endurance coach. So the number one thing that's drawing me to more formal races is to continue to increase my presence as a coach inside of the tribal training team. You know, head coach Ryan Dreyer was, I think, extremely prescient and wise to bring me onto his staff about a year ago. And this year has been about figuring out my role, supporting athletes, having conversations, and introducing ideas. And 2025 is a year where I really want to solidify that authority within the team that I'm an assistant coach on. And so the number one draw for any of these races is a team event. This past year, we've run an incredible array of team events where we have, 10 plus athletes from the tribe all competing in the same event. People traveling from all across North America, sort of getting into group chats, coaching calls, and all training towards that same goal. And then in person, we meet for a few days before. Sometimes we even have a shared house. And then we compete together, we reflect, we let the good vibes sort of hang on and linger for a little bit longer than if we were to just sort of pack up and head out in our separate ways, which is how most people experience these races. And every time you go to a team event, you get amped up, enthusiastic, and you want to get right back into another team event. It's kind of like once you race a tribal team event, no other race will do. And I'm really not interested in signing up for any races that, one, aren't official team races, but two, don't have any connection to the team. I want to utilize these races as a way to build community, to enhance my network, to celebrate the relationships and connections that we're making online in real life, and to continue to grow this vision of what the team can be. Ryan hired me as a consultant 18 months before he brought me on as an assistant coach, because he recognized the value that I could bring in deepening out the experiences and the meaning of belonging to the team beyond just training for athletic competitions. And this year has been an incredible realization of a vision that I've held for sports for a long time, but I'm not the builder guy. I've tried to start some communities. I've tried to figure out ways to bring people together. And Ryan just has a skill and a talent in doing this that I don't have. And it enhances my ability to spread knowledge and to impact the lives of the athletes when I can just focus on being the prof. And that's been such a success this year that we need to double down. One of the themes that we often talk about is once we break through, we don't just get to rest on our laurels. We don't just get to do the same things that we were doing to get that initial breakthrough or that latest breakthrough. We have to go harder. We have to double down on the things that worked in order to progress and to get to that next breakthrough. So all races effectively being oriented around the team are my way of doubling down in 2025. So that's the first vision. The second reason or variable that's defining what races I want to sign up for is to continue to step into my own athlete identity as a distance runner who tackles ultra marathons with grace, poise, and talent. Right? The 50 miler, the backyard ultra, the trail fest, those are official team events. The Kettle Moraine 100 miler, that's a me event. It's the one event that I want to put on the calendar that's for my progression, that's for my achievement, and it's to satisfy my performance goals throughout the year. Last year, I didn't really have a well-defined performance goal going into 2024. It kind of emerged throughout the process, and it ended up being at the 2024 Prairie on Fire Backyard Ultra, where I was tasked to win the race, go as far as possible. I talked about in previous episodes how I trained for that mentally, but also my race recaps, I think, are really excellent episodes that highlight this new energy, I would say, in my training and certainly in my competing, where I've gotten that taste. I've gotten that itch to get into the arena, to push myself, not just to serve others not just to coach and not just to find community, but to really utilize, right, the crucible of competition as a vehicle for my own personal advancement. And the performance goal that I have for 2025 is become a 100-miler 2 times in 2 different formats. So run a standard 100-mile trail race. This standard 100-mile trail race. Gosh, we must sound like psychopaths. But also I am itching to hit 100 miles in that backyard ultra format. And so one of the team races is already going to be a backyard ultra. So I got that covered. And we were going to run a 100-miler as a team, but we've decided to pare it down to a 50-miler. Next year, we'll probably have a team 100-miler on the calendar. But I want to get that 100 miles twice this year. So I've got my own performance, and I'm matching it with the desire to do things with the team. And I'll talk about how this 100-miler satisfies that in just a second. But the 100-miler, right, if this is something that I want to do for myself, it's got to align with the third value, the third reason, the third orienting principle that makes me decide on what races to run. And the third is to finally have my family attend a race to cheer me on and see me cross the finish line. So I've crossed a bunch of finish lines in the past year and a half, but my family has not been present for any of them. I've had to travel to the United States in order to race. I haven't been able to get into any local races. That's just a logistical thing so far. And also I just haven't wanted to be in too many races in general. And so that's a gigantic motivating factor for me in 2025. At first, I wanted them to come to Cave Creek with us. We actually have family who have accommodations in Cave Creek that are basically right next to the regional park where the race is going to be taking place. So I thought that would be kind of cool. But that's a lot to just travel to see me cross a finish line. The Prairie on Fire Backyard Ultra. Boy, that sounds like a great time. It's not going to be too far from our house. We're likely going to all travel down to the campsite as a family, be in the RV, but I still want the ability to have my family wake up in their own beds, drive out to a race start or race finish, and see Dad do something pretty awesome. So this Kettle Moraine 100-miler, right, it hits that because it's going to be located about an hour drive from where we are projected to be living next year in the North Chicago suburbs, right? So ultimately, I've got these 3 orienting principles, right? Continue to increase my presence as a coach inside of Tribal, but also as sort of like a fitness authority in this space. 2, continue to step into my own athlete identity and embrace performance goals. And 3, make sure my family is present as often as possible. So if I've got these 3 variables, I'll tell you what, I'm not signing up for a race if it doesn't hit at least 2 of those 3. If it doesn't hit at least 2 of those 3 reasons, it's not a race that I can sign up for. Now that takes away a tremendous amount of decision fatigue. When am I going to be racing? Well, we've already got a team race schedule, right? February, end of July, early August, September, boom. Those are nice and spaced out too, right? I'm not interested in signing up for back-to-back races. Like, I don't want to go and run 50 miles and then 2 weeks later blast the fastest half trail marathon that I can, right? I want minimum 4 to 6 weeks in between every single one of my races so that I can recover and I can adequately prepare to go hard in the next competition, or at least be physically prepared, right? So that first orienting principle, Tribal races, that gave me an incredibly easy framework to start filling out the other races, right? Every time I increase that presence within the tribe, I am continuing to step into my own athlete identity and coach identity, right? And when I say family attend a race, these guys are my family too. So every team race kind of hits every single level. But what about this 100 miler, right? The 100 miler allows me to step into my own identity. It also allows my family to witness it. And this is how great the team is. I've already got 2 tribal athletes who have volunteered to come to the 100 miler with me, one to crew and one to pace. And I haven't even solicited the other 60 plus members of the team, right? So even my own performance goals brings the team into it. So every one of my races is effectively hitting each one of these major reasons. Now, these are my own personal reasons. These are my own motivations, right? And let me tell you about this 100 miler a little bit more in detail so that you can see how this plays out in real time. My family and I, we've known that we've been moving to North Chicago for a few months now, but we are in a bit of a limbo period because the visas are out of our control and we simply don't know when we were going to be moving until maybe last week, right? And we now know that we're going to be living there in early January of 2025 and staying for 2 years minimum. That gave me the permission to finally go ahead and search for races because I wasn't willing to commit to a race that I didn't know where I'd have to travel to, from where, how long, what are the demands, can my family go, can my family not go? So I started researching 100-mile trail races around the Chicago area early last week, and one stood out immediately. It was this 100-mile trail race way at the south of Illinois, which is starting to get into the mountainous, rocky areas of that part of the United States. And I saw the topography, I saw the geography, and thought, this has got to be the race. Like, it's in Illinois, so I'm not going to be traveling that far. It looks like an amazing adventure, something I definitely want all the trail races to be. It's a big time adventure. It's one of the reasons I love trail running, is going to explore an adventure in beautiful, beautiful natural environments. But the more I looked into it, it started to run against those values. Number one, five and a half hour drive away. Yeah, it's local inside the state, but it's not accessible for my family to come and see. Right? So right away it was, I really am going to be doing this one on my own, and I'm not super interested in that. Number two, it just absolutely went against my performance goals. I want to finish 200 milers next year, not just one. This 100 miler in the south of Illinois, 2 weeks before the Prairie on Fire in 2025, right? So if I choose that 100 miler in southern Illinois, I'm in bad shape for the 2025 Prairie on Fire, which again is one of my performance goals, but it's also a team race, and it's also one where my family is planning to attend. So if there's any race that's kind of standing above the other ones right now, it's that Backyard Ultra, because it most clearly hits all of those 3 guiding principles that are directing me to make these decisions. So that Southern Illinois race, while I was probably the most excited to go after that one, I recognized really quickly, shoot, it's not going to work. Like, I can't put that one on the schedule. It won't set me up for success in not just one area, but in a whole bunch of other areas, right? So that started to tilt me more towards looking for a different race, the Kettle Moraine 100 miler. That's an hour from where we're going to be living. Perfect. It's in the middle of June. It's in a dead space in between the 50 miler and the Prairie on Fire backyard. So it gives me lots of time to train, to rest, to recover, and to adequately hit my 2 performance goals. And in terms of allowing me to increase my coaching presence, I've already got two athletes who have decided that they want to come and support me. It's incredible validation of my authority within the tribe, but also my authority as a coach in this space. It's not a coincidence. The two people that volunteered already to come and help me out at this 100-miler are two people I worked with as effectively one-on-one clients before they came inside of the tribe. And if I didn't have these strong orienting principles, think about the decision fatigue that would be entering my mind as to which 100-miler should I sign up for. Oh, I really want to go to the cool one. I really want to go to the one that's a little bit more difficult. I really want to go to the one that's beckoning me and calling me in terms of the adventure. But that would be very selfish, and that wouldn't be setting me up for long-term success. One of the strategies that I'm employing and that we employ on the team is to make races work not just for you as an individual, but for your family and all of your other responsibilities and obligations. If racing is taking you away from serving your responsibilities, you're not going to be supported to go and race continually, right? If I don't consult my wife, her schedule, her needs, and I just start putting dates on the calendar and forcing everybody to work around my schedule, how much support am I going to get in 2026 when I go and I say, hey, these are the races that I want to race in? I'm going to be met, rightfully so, with resistance and friction. I don't want resistance and friction. I want the training and the competing to improve the other areas of my life. I don't want it to detract and take away. So by having deep guiding principles that are related to my internal why, as to why I'm doing this in the first place, that just protects my ability to continue to sign up for races, because the people who depend on me will see that the races aren't taking away from them. They are actually building me up to be a better husband, a better father, a better coach, a better athlete, a better leader, etc., etc., etc. And if I'm not making the decisions that are based upon the deeper values and principles that I hold about the activity, well, then I'm going against myself. I'll ultimately be betrayed by myself by the decisions that I'm making. They'll set me up for a fall, and they will not aid in any way, shape, or form my personal development through sport, through training, and through competition. So for people out there that are listening, I want you to really think hard about what I am going to say next. If the competitions take you away from the obligation, you don't deserve to do them. If the competitions take you away from your obligations, you don't deserve to do them. Races are celebrations. Races are triumphs. Races are joyful occasions where we get to proclaim our agency, our determination, our wills, and our talents in order to achieve something we desire. They are transcendent moments where we realize all of the hard work, the transformations that have occurred in ourselves physically, mentally, and spiritually through the training process. If you haven't transformed by the time you hit the start line, nothing in the race is going to matter in terms of a breakthrough or a transcendence, right? Everything about the races has to be this positive expression of self, of becoming, and of overcoming. And if I have resistance, I have friction within myself, within my home, and I'm going against my obligations, I don't have the ability to celebrate at the race. I'm always going to be worried. I'm always going to be thinking about, how do I make this up? Because clearly I'm taking away. And ultimately, all your hard work is wasted. All the training, throw it all aside. Yeah, maybe you got faster and stronger, but you let everybody else who is counting on you down. So you end up weaker, you end up more pathetic, and you end up being a loser. I don't care about the finish lines. I care about doing this in a way that makes me better when I toe the starting line. And clearly I want to finish. I want to go faster. I want to do more laps at the Backyard Ultra. I want to coach while running. I want to lift up my teammates. I want to inspire the people who have put their faith in me as a coach. People who confide in me, who trust me to guide them through the difficult adversity of their lives, both in training, but also outside of the arena. And if I show up with selfish motives for signing up for these races, and I let my own selfish desires dictate how I'm going to go about putting these things on the calendar, I betray them as well. So there's no validation, there's no confirmation, there's no assuredness of self when you engage in a process that is against your internal values. And for me, signing up for races is an obvious reflection of these deeply held values and principles that are within myself. Now, you may not have that same burning desire on the inside, and that's okay. But what I want everybody listening to understand, when we demand space to go after our passions and our dreams and to strive for excellence within whatever activity we're going for, we cannot lapse on all of our obligations and responsibilities outside of that activity. We are not kids. We don't have that freedom. We have the freedom that's related and attached to our responsibilities. And if I demand the space to race, I first have to ensure that it's not taking away from those responsibilities. As long as I'm meeting those, then I have freedom to act. Then I've got the freedom to put 4 races on the calendar and know that I'm not taking away from anything, but all I'm doing is enhancing it. Signing up for a race can be one of the greatest things that you can do in your life to push the boundaries and to challenge yourself. But I've seen it too many times where it's the wrong race at the wrong time, doesn't work with the family, travel logistics are a nightmare, costs too much, burns out the athlete, they're not excited to go, they want to get out of there so fast, there's no transcendence, there's no breakthrough, there's resentment, there's regret, there's a little bit of cynicism about the whole athletic endeavor as an adult because I just put all this money and time and effort into something that was not rewarding, that caused strife and discontent in my life, the opposite of inner peace, the opposite of transcendence, the opposite of becoming through sport. So if you are somebody who is itching to get back into training, who wants to get a race on the calendar, who's looking for sport as an arena to challenge yourself, but also bring about some personal development, you need to ensure that the goal doesn't overtake the process, that the race doesn't overtake the journey. And ultimately, that's what having these deep values prevents against, right? Ooh, that race in Southern Illinois, super cool. But it's against the journey. It's against the longer progress that I'm seeking by racing. Therefore, I shouldn't do it, and I should go find something else. That's what I want you to take from this. If you have any questions, are thinking about signing up for a race, or want to know how you can figure out your own internal values when it comes to these things, get in contact with me. Shoot me a message. I'd love to give you some advice. I'd love to give you some help. Happy racing, friends. I know 2025 is going to be a great year.